Discipline doesn't mean depriving yourself. It means creating a structure that aligns with your goals. Imagine maintaining your weight without feeling restricted. This is how mindful discipline works. You don't have to resist and say no to all the foods, but you can be disciplined and nutrient sequence your foods, right? We've talked about this on podcasts time and time again. Flexibility, but boundaries. Discipline doesn't mean being rigid. It's about setting boundaries that give you room to enjoy life while staying aligned with your goals. Don't resist temptation. Build systems that naturally lead to healthier decisions. That way you don't even have to think of the resistance. Discipline is considering taking a walk after that Thanksgiving dinner just to increase your insulin sensitivity. That's something that takes discipline. It has nothing to do with resistance or willpower or giving up your favorite foods. And my advice is this: to stay disciplined, I would avoid spontaneity. What does that mean? It doesn't mean don't go out, doesn't mean any of that. But what it means is you're not going to just eat to eat because, I want to eat. You're going to plan to eat, and you're going to eat when you're hungry, and you're going to stop when you're satisfied. That Thanksgiving meal is never going to hurt you. It's the Thanksgiving week and month that does. Remember, when you're mindful and you don't do impulsive decisions, and by the way, that's everything, right? Impulsive decisions very seldom help us, okay? They're fun, don't get me wrong, but eating impulsively, I think, is one of the number one contributors to overeating. Stress is a sabotager, and that's the thing that changes. A lot of times when people lose weight and regain it, they say, nothing changed in my life. But then I'll ask, did you start a new job? Or did your kids start a new activity? Or something along those lines, or something in their relationships? And sure enough, there's a social stressor that's happened. And what if I told you that managing stress with mindfulness actually makes weight maintenance easier? Hello, friends. I know, it's been a minute. Well, I guess a week. I've missed you. Anyways, so today I wanted to discuss 4 mindfulness tips that will keep you safe from packing on those pounds that you work so hard to lose. So this episode's all about how to not regain the weight. This is arguably one of the most hard things to do in weight loss. If you were like me, you've gained weight, you've lost weight, and up and down, up and down. And the trick to not doing that is to stop the weight regain altogether so you never have to lose it again. Now, this is something I struggled with for years. I've gained and lost, I want to say, over 300 pounds. Meaning not at once, right? Up 20 pounds, down 20 pounds, up, down, up, down. So if you've ever lost weight only to find it creeping back, you're definitely not alone. Keeping the weight off is freaking hard. And it's much harder than losing it in the first place, in my opinion. So today we're going to dive into 4 powerful strategies that can help you keep the weight off for good. And these strategies are absolutely not about willpower. They're about building awareness and creating sustainable and mindful habits. By the end of the episode, you'll have actionable tools to make weight maintenance feel more effortless, even when life gets in the way. So in this first segment, I want to discuss discipline, okay? The power of discipline and mindful eating and building sustainable habits. So discipline doesn't mean depriving yourself. It means creating a structure that aligns with your goals. Imagine maintaining your weight without feeling restricted. This is how mindful discipline works. Discipline is a skill, so unlike willpower that can come and go, it's a skill, okay? It's not an innate trait. It's not about forcing yourself to stick to a rigid plan. It's about mindful habits that support your goals, and instead of obsessing over perfect choices, mindful discipline helps you create routines that make healthier choices easier. So discipline is like any other skill. The more you practice it, the easier it becomes. So instead of relying on sheer willpower, which can fade easily when stressed, you can build habits that create automatic actions. Let me give you a good example. Say you've had a long day and your energy is low. A disciplined approach isn't about saying no to dessert. Instead, it's about building a structure that helps you make an easier decision. Maybe decide the dessert's a once-a-week treat that you plan ahead of time, rather than doing it every time you have low energy. Another thing I can think about with discipline is basically saying to yourself, I'm going to make sure I have my water 3 times a day, at least 20 to 30 ounces, so you know you're not going to be dehydrated and therefore thirsty and more fatigued, so that way you wouldn't even be thinking about those cravings. The idea is that if you have discipline to your routine, things like strength training, movement, stress reduction techniques, that you set yourself up for success and you don't have to rely on things like willpower. So the second thing I want to discuss is systems versus restrictions, okay? Instead of simply trying to resist temptation, right? Because when you resist, I want you to think of the ball in the water, okay? So say you're in a pool, right? And you have that bouncy ball, you know, that colorful one that has all the rainbow colors all over it, and you push that in the water, right? You can push it for a long time, but eventually you'll get tired and the ball will come back up. Usually, if you've been pushing the ball under the water and you've been pushing it, it will shoot up way higher than it would have been if you had just let it be. And this is what I talk about when I say resistance. Resistance will never help. So don't resist temptation. Build systems that naturally lead to healthier decisions. That way you don't even have to think of the resistance. Now, you want to create routines that don't feel restrictive but support long-term goals. So example, meal prep, right? It's not about eating the same bland meals every day. It's just about building structure to the week so you avoid impulsive choices. So when your meals are prepped, you're less likely to reach for unhealthy snacks or have to resist those unhealthy meals altogether. Having healthy snacks ready to go when hunger strikes is stopping you from scrambling to make a decision. Another thing I want you to think about is flexibility with boundaries. Okay, I know that sounds like that doesn't actually make sense, right? Flexibility, but boundaries. But discipline doesn't mean being rigid. It's about setting boundaries that give you room to enjoy life while staying aligned with your goals. So a great example is Thanksgiving, right? You know Thanksgiving, there's going to be the turkey, the stuffing, and whatever is going to be there, right? Especially for my diabetics out there, I want you to think of it this way. You don't have to resist and say no to all the foods. But you can be disciplined and nutrient sequence your foods, right? We've talked about this on podcasts time and time again. Eating protein, vegetables, and fats before the carbs. Because when we do it in a certain order, we know the sugar is not going to spike so much. And if the sugar doesn't spike, it doesn't dip as much. If it doesn't dip, we don't get an energy crash and have increased cravings as much. So that's somewhere where you could be disciplined, right? Another way you could be disciplined at a Thanksgiving dinner is eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're satisfied. Meaning not eating to the point that you're so full, right? You could still try all the things without getting to that point. Discipline is considering taking a walk after that Thanksgiving dinner just to increase your insulin sensitivity. That's something that takes discipline. It has nothing to do with resistance or willpower or giving up your favorite foods. You decide how much cake you're going to have. Maybe it's a slice. Maybe you're having a different indulgence, like extra of the stuffing before an extra piece of the cake. It's something about that it's not deprivation, but rather building a flexible plan with boundaries that you're just not going to overdo it. There's a nice study published in Appetite that found mindful eating, which encourages paying attention to hunger cues and being intentional about food choices, prevents overeating and supports weight management over time. And my advice is this: to stay disciplined, I would avoid spontaneity. What does that mean? It doesn't mean don't go out, doesn't mean any of that. But what it means is you're not going to just eat to eat because, I want to eat. You're going to plan to eat, and you're going to eat when you're hungry and you're going to stop when you're satisfied. So let me give you another example of flexible with boundaries. That same Thanksgiving dinner, say you're not hosting and you're going to a house and you have no idea what's going to be there. But you can probably guess, right? You could probably guess, and you could tell yourself, okay, I'm going to be disciplined and bring something I know serves me. So you could bring your own dish. And I'm going to be disciplined and have 1 to 3 bites of each dish that's out there. So that way I don't eat a whole plate of something that could absolutely destroy me. That is something that is discipline, okay? You're not giving up. You're not resisting. You're trying all the things for Thanksgiving. You're enjoying all the holidays, but you're not going to just totally toss everything out the window. You're going to make sure you have nutrients that you need there, and you're going to make sure that it's within a certain boundary or space while being flexible. That's what I mean by flexibility and boundaries. So the next thing I want to talk about is my super awesome tip for keeping that weight off. Now, usually when you're in the weight loss phase, you have a plan, right? You know what you're going to do. You're eating certain macros. Maybe you're doing a plate method or something along those lines, so you know what works for you. The problem is when we're at maintenance, a lot of times we stop planning altogether. And what I would encourage you to do is to log your food log 1 week a month. So make it the first week of the month every month that you look at what you're actually eating, completing a complete food log and drinking log. It builds awareness for you because what you could do is look at what you were doing before, right, in your previous journaling, and then look at it now. And if it looks the same, odds are you're going to maintain the same weight. But if you're starting to realize you're starting to increase your caloric intake more, or maybe exercise less, or you're more stressed and sleeping less, you're going to see the weight go up, but also the habits are changing. And then you could be disciplined and revert back to the old habits. This will stop the pattern, which if you've ever regained weight before, you know what I'm talking about, where you go on the scale, it's 1 pound here, 2 pounds there, and it creeps up even half a pound at a time until all of a sudden you've regained 20 of the pounds you lost. If you do this 1 week every month, you'll never get there. You'll max gain 1 to 5 pounds. And that is the best thing because that is reversible very easily without that emotion of defeat. Now, one of the most powerful tools for maintaining this weight loss is food logging, but it's not just about counting calories. It's about logging the other patterns, right? Like I just mentioned, the sleep, okay? I want you to mention the stress. I want you to mention the exercise. I want you to mention all of it, not just what you're eating, especially around times like the holidays and birthdays, because that's where we can have 1 week off, but then we continue those patterns and then it becomes a whole month off, 2 months off. So if you every month, the first week of the month, you do this, you will not regain the weight. Now, I want to take a second and just get really exact on how to set up this food log or monthly log that you're going to do 1 week every month, okay? So you're going to commit to tracking everything you eat, okay? Keep it simple. Don't stress. I'm not saying count calories, just write exactly what you're having though. You can use MyFitnessPal, Chronometer, any of those kind of apps, but I usually just handwrite it in a little journal. Be as accurate as possible. Include even the snacks and the drinks. Those are always hidden stuff. Then I want you to write when you eat. It helps you understand your eating schedule and whether the patterns are related to the time of day and if that's affecting your appetite. I want you to write how much you ate. You can do portions like the size of a melon or palm of my hand, something like this. I want you to write about your mood and hunger level. Were you hungry? Did you eat because of stress or boredom? What was happening there when you were eating? Did you eat when you were hungry, stop when you were satisfied every meal, or only some of the meals? The next thing is I want you to analyze that log. When the week is over, reflect on that food log. What were the patterns? Compare it to the last month. Did you snack more? Did you have stressful events? Understanding your emotional triggers is key to preventing overeating and maintaining weight. So if you notice you often eat more after work, when you're tired, plan out the snack for that time of day so that we don't overeat. Think like carrot sticks, hummus, cucumber. I love Chomp's beef sticks. They have no sulfates in them and they really keep me satisfied and give me a little bit of that salt I'm craving. So if you do this and then you also incorporate your sleep and all the other habits you were doing before, you're going to do very well. The next thing is I want you to pre-plan for special occasions like birthdays, holidays, vacations. It's crucial. Just like we talked about previously, when we think of things like, I don't know, Thanksgiving dinner, right? I want you to look at what you're going to do after the holiday. Yes, you're going to indulge in the holiday. You're going to enjoy the foods, enjoy the things. Eating and celebration, it's part of life. But what I want you to do is pre-plan the day after the holiday or birthday, what you're going to eat. Because often what happens is we'll just eat leftovers and Thanksgiving Day becomes Thanksgiving week. And that's when we get into trouble. So maybe you'll choose that, you know what, I may have leftovers, but the next day I'm going to have one slice of the leftover pumpkin pie, or I'm going to have a serving of the stuffing, something like this. If you do this and you take away, again, the spontaneity of being bored and going to the fridge, but actually planning out your day, that Thanksgiving meal is never going to hurt you. It's the Thanksgiving week and month that does. Remember, when you're mindful and you don't do impulsive decisions, and by the way, that's everything, right? Impulsive decisions very seldom help us, okay? They're fun, don't get me wrong, but eating impulsively, I think, is one of the #1 contributors to overeating. And there's research about this. One in the Obesity Journal showed that food logging combined with mindful reflection leads to better weight management outcomes by fostering awareness and accountability, especially during times of social stress or temptation. The next thing I want to talk about is stress management, lowering cortisol to prevent weight gain, okay? Stress is a sabotager, and that's the thing that changes. A lot of times when people lose weight and regain it, they say, nothing changed in my life. But then I'll ask, did you start a new job? Or did your kids start a new activity or something along those lines, or something in their relationships? And sure enough, there's a social stressor that's happened. And what if I told you that managing stress with mindfulness actually makes weight maintenance easier? So what do I mean by that? Well, chronic stress leads to high cortisol, which promotes fat storage, particularly around the abdomen. And cortisol is a natural hormone that helps us manage stress, but when it's chronically elevated, it causes inflammation and slows down fat burning. And the good news is that mindfulness can significantly reduce stress and balance the cortisol. So I want you to schedule. When you do your schedule every week, I want you to plan the times you're going to do deep breathing, meditation, and yoga. If you don't plan it, it won't happen. It'll be the first thing you set aside. Say, I forgot about that one. So example, schedule that you're going to begin each morning with 5 minutes of deep breathing or a short body scan, meditation, sitting quietly, focusing on your breath. And when your mind wanders, I want you to gently bring it back to your breath. This will actually reduce your cortisol, believe it or not, and help you start your day with clarity and calm. So another thing is you can do yoga and movement. For me, stress, whenever I'm stressed or anxious, movement absolutely brings me back to where I want to be. So try yoga or even something like Tai Chi once or twice a week. This incorporates both physical movement and deep breathing to reduce tension and improve mental focus. There's a lot of study on this, but mindfulness meditation significantly reduces cortisol levels and improves emotional regulation, leading to better weight control and reduced belly fat. The next thing I want to talk about is mindfulness and exercise, okay? So making movement work for you. So exercise is essential for keeping weight off, but it's easy to lose motivation. By making exercise a mindful practice though, you can enjoy this while supporting your weight loss goals. So mindful exercise isn't about pushing yourself to the limit every session. It's about staying present with your body during your workout, focusing on the sensations of movement, connecting to the process rather than the outcome. So when you practice mindfulness during exercise, you're less likely to burn out, which is important. Because a lot of times we'll overwork out, be so sore for all the next days that we stop moving. That happened to me so many times. I would do this big strength training workout, follow this crazy routine that I saw, I don't know, Sofia Vergara do in one magazine, or I don't know, who else did I copy? I think I had Scarlett Johansson, that was it. Scarlett Johansson, I used to copy that, one thing she did where she wore the tight cat black suit. Anyways, point being, I would over stress myself to a workout I couldn't even handle, be sore for 4 days and then didn't work out. workout. And what did that do? Nothing for me. So what I want you to do during your workout is focus on how your body actually feels with each movement. Pay attention to how your muscles contract, your breath, how your heart rate rises. And afterward, I want you to reflect the next day. Were you sore or just a little sore? Were you able to also move the next day? If not, you might want to cut back. And by doing this, you won't hate working out, but you'll actually enjoy the process. And you're less likely to get injured. So another thing you could do is try mindful walking, where you pay attention to your steps and your breathing while you walk, or incorporate mindful yoga, combining breath and movement. There's a lot of study on this. They found that those who practice mindful exercise show improved adherence to fitness routines, have greater enjoyment, and better weight management results over time. So let's bring this all together. Discipline doesn't mean restriction. It's about creating mindful habits that support your long-term goals. So I want to recap the 4 strategies we discussed so you can stay on track after you've lost the weight. First, we covered mindful eating, right? Where we're not going to just impulsively eat. We covered food logging, stress management, and mindful exercise as all strategies we can do to keep the weight off for good. I mean to start small, implementing one strategy at a time. The key is consistency, not perfection. All right, that's it for this one. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe or leave a review and share it with others who might benefit. And remember, sustainable weight maintenance is about balance and mindfulness, not about restrictions. Until next time, stay mindful, stay healthy, and stay on track. I'll see you in the next one.